Welcome back to Challengestone 2, guys. We did just see Kalento make it into the finals 3-2 over Silent Storm. Really close and cool games. Lots of weird cards used. Some interactions we weren't even really sure about there at points, some Fugan and whatnot. But
Yeah.
it was
Hunter
nice.
Hunter made it, past the round of 8, but still not quite the distance. I'm
Yeah.
sure many Hunter fans out there are pretty sad. Too bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You deserve to be sad for once, Hunter fans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Shaman making it to the finals, I really didn't expect that. That's really cool. But
Yep.
up next, we have a player that we haven't seen yet, so we don't even technically know what he's playing. Going up against Warlock from
Yep.
Kaldi, which had the most mistakes out of any deck made. So
Four
he's even playing
mistakes.
Core Hounds.
Yeah, he's playing double Salty Dog, double Stormpike Commando, which is also a shared experience by some other participants. But he is alone in the double Priestess of Elune and the double Core Hound.
Yep.
But still, he managed to defeat Challengestone 1's runner-up Trump.
Mm.
Believe it was 3
3-2.
to 2. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a
it was
pretty
actually
close one.
very close. Yeah,
It was
and
very
the thing is,
close.
Kaldi was holding Corehound almost all 5 games, like
Yeah,
just sitting in his hand. It was
I think
so like,
actually all 5
yeah,
games.
and it just like it sat there. There was
Hmm.
never a moment where he should actually have played it too. So it's like
Yeah, never worth it.
it's a pretty big deal that you have like some dead cards in your deck.
It is. It
So
is.
I don't
All
know
right,
though.
well, we'll see how he matches up against Noxious, but before that, let's figure out what Noxious is playing. Let's take a look at the deck building. This is recorded from, of course, the right after we told them the challenge. They started like talking about, started building the decks and figuring out what's going on. Noxious immediately goes to Priest. It is a class I think he plays a lot of. I think he's the one who came up with a Randuin, 100% random Priest deck. So he's very used to playing just dumb stuff with Priest.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
hefty on the experience level in that sense. And I think a lot of people actually, really wanted to see Noxious participate in Challengestone because, we talked about how some players have a lot of tournament success because of their ability to play the decks. Often ones that they're given by their teammates or that they see online. But Noxious is absolutely the opposite. He hasn't had much success in tournaments, specifically because he really loves the variety aspect of Hearthstone. So this is really, his moment to shine and
mm,
to show us what he's got. Because he is very, very creative. He is a very good player, specifically in this domain.
yeah. And it's really cool to see him just instantly go with Priest and just. I mean, that's not something that I expected here at all. Really, that was uh, like it
Priest
was
seems
not within the
okay.
top three classes that I was really thinking about,
Hmm.
So I mean, yeah, the hero power seems like pretty versatile overall, like just heal your minions and stuff. I remember back
Yeah.
when Hearthstone first came out, we were like, oh, I mean that's pretty useful for trading on boards and whatnot. And a lot of this is just crappy minions versus crappy minions, so it could be good, but to make three different decks and have to like find the right minions to do that with, that could be hard because like a lot of these guys are going for like two aggro-ish decks and a control deck, and I
Oh,
feel like
he's
Priest.
going for aggro. That's
Yeah,
aggro.
yeah, but does Priest aggro truly work?
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know.
So we saw the deck building of all the other players on the first day, but Noxious was an exception because he had a bye in the first round due to some technical difficulties with Fresca. So we are just seeing his deck building. If you guys would like to see the deck building segments of the other players, please check for the VODs of the first day of Challenge Stone 2. Um, but man, he really knows what he's doing. There's also there's some technical ability here. It's pretty important to actually name your decks because usually in a tournament you're playing three different classes, so it's very easy to distinguish
Mm,
which of the three. But I feel a lot of players have done this. I think I even recommended it that it's very important to organize your ideas in like three separate categories and not really
mm,
mix it up because usually what comes forth from a successful deck is just a consistent goal of the deck. So
yeah.
I want to control the game, I want to go face, I want to combo out. You want those things to be in line with one another, and most of the cards in the deck to fit that line of play. So you don't want to mess that up.
Mm. Well, he definitely is naming these some different things and categorizing them pretty well. It looks like I think he has two aggro decks in here and a control deck. So I'm my mind is kind of blown on what you're going to be able to do with priests with 2 aggro's, because like the most aggressive priest decks that I've actually used on ladder and stuff is stuff like Shadow Priest or something, right? Where it's
He's
like,
got part
okay,
of
this
that.
is yeah. I mean, I guess you could make one, but to make 2, a lot of people are falling back on things like either let's go mech, let's go Murloc, something like that. It looks like he has one deck with a bunch of
Mechs.
mech in it though, so maybe a mech priest, which would be cool to see,
Well,
I guess.
he has named his decks aggro. So
Yeah.
like I think the mech one is like zoo, and this deck is actually aggro. And the difference, if you guys are curious, the difference is like with a zoo deck, you generally try to trade at the start of the game, dominate the board, and then go for face.
Yeah.
And with aggro, it starts with face.
Yeah.
And nothing changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the as far as the aggro goes though, with that priest hero power, I'm like, are you going to be your hero power is basically useless, right? So it's not like Hunter where okay, you start to fall behind on cards a little bit, hero power, hero power, hero power. Here it's like, well, I guess you can put in, Akanai, maybe that's probably going to be in your control deck though, but
It's got Shadow Form as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
most likely Shadow Form in there, but like you're basically
Oh,
trying to
he's making
draw
Hunter.
a 3-mana card. Oh.
Nope.
Okay, he
Never
threw that
mind.
away.
Never mind.
He's like, well, I got 10 minutes left. I don't know if this is going to be worthwhile to change.
Yeah, it's actually pretty amazing. We gave the players 35 minutes because it was such a hard challenge, because it was so easy to make mistakes. And we saw, actually, the first finalist, Kalento, actually even made a mistake in the deck building process, because it is a very demanding challenge. It requires a lot of attention to detail, a lot of strategy. Because it is conquest format, you can't just stack one and then the second deck, and then your third deck is absolute trash. That was kind of what we saw from Eloise.
Yeah, that was too bad because she like dominated with the zoo deck.
Totally
Like, okay,
crushed.
get out of here, like die, Kalento. And I mean, her control deck looked really solid, like it would be able to pick up a win without really much problem.
She just didn't play that one, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think she probably was like, well, I should just play this deck against the range of decks that's left because it's so weak. I have to pick up a win anywhere. So I think strategically it was smart of her to just continually use that and try to pick up the win. But
I think this is actually the first player which like really finished before the time limit. So that is pretty cool, and it's pretty impressive. Like 10 minutes is a lot of time. It's a lot of time. Like right now he's just thinking, fine tuning. Like we're looking at the decks, we're talking about how we feel they're maybe a little bit random, but when you have this much time left and you're still not changing things, I think maybe we should second guess that statement.
Yeah.
I think maybe these decks are very carefully put together.
You can tell he has like a lot of familiarity with Priest. Just like he made these so quickly, and he really is just refining. I'm excited to see what he actually says in that interview, because I don't know, it seems like he's more confident in this deck building than any other player that we saw, really.
Oh, by far in all of Challengestone, just by the time limit and how composed he is.
Yeah,
absolutely the case. Yeah,
he's got a minute left. He's not even looking at things now. I think he's like he's reading a book or something right now. I don't even know. He's figuring out what he wants to order on Sky Mall or something. With all his prize winnings, he's so sure he's going to win this.
Yep. Very cool stuff from Noxious. I mean, you could often expect, if you're just watching someone do nothing, it's like kind of whatever, but really, like 10 minutes is crazy.
Yeah.
And he didn't change much after that. So very cool stuff. We do have the interviews again. Again, these interviews are right after the deck building process. These are not interviews at this stage in the tournament. So Kaldi has not yet played any games. It is the interview before that. But we haven't seen Noxious talk about his decks. We haven't seen Noxious talk about the tournament. So let's get into that, hear a few words from them, and then we'll get into the games. So here we are with Kaldi. Took a look at your decks. Warlock. Warlock, some people thought was one of the stronger classes. How did you come to approach this challenge? Why did you end up picking Warlock?
I was thinking mostly about what hero power combines the best with the neutral minions, because you have a lot of variety there. Also thinking about, I guess, overall, what would be the possibilities in terms of, Warrior has 2 or 3 possibilities to be played, Mage has 2 or 3 possibilities to be played, and the same with Warlock. So I felt Warlock was probably the most versatile when it came to that. He the class cards are relatively strong. There's not as many bad ones as in many other classes. Like I felt also like the curve was a bit spread out, you know, compared to I guess Ro4 or something. You have all the way from Mal'Ganis to I guess Voidwalker or Flame Imp or something like that.
Yeah, there are some strong cards. What do you think other players would be choosing? Do you think a lot of other players would play Warlock as well? If so, maybe you'd consider Sacrificial Pact?
That's actually a good idea, yeah. I think if I were to pick the second one, I'd probably go with maybe Mage or the Flame Strike. I think that'd be excellent. Also, Water Elementals, a lot of flexibility. Maybe Hunter should be good as well. See that doing really well. So.
Well, I'm the one who designed the challenge, and even still, when I was looking through your decks, I was surprised that I actually missed some of the powerful cards. Like I think because people have to play just early game to defend themselves, a card like Deathlord is often going to be surprisingly powerful. So I'm very very happy that you included some of these very powerful cards. But we did notice, as we have with some other players, you do have some mistakes. You have the double Worgen Infiltrator, which will be Salty Dogs. You have the double Annoyatron, which will be Stormpike Commandos. Lothebs become Core Hounds, but Void Callers become Priestess of Elune. That is a little bit of a hit, indeed. How do you feel about that? Are you crushed?
Not really. I knew about the Annoyatron at least. It's just the case of, you're really going back and forth quite fast. So you make a decision. Okay, when I include a working that's like a medium, I guess a mediocre card. So, but then you don't have the time to go back and actually change it. It was kind of a more, three ideas going at once type of thing.
I think because you're playing Warlock, it's more forgiving than other classes. Other classes are punished by mistakes more so, because with Warlock, you can often afford to float a few cards, especially if you're playing a slow deck. But you did kind of nail the three type of decks. So I think your basic approach is very good. Warlock being a very good class, and then you go with the Zoo, you go with the Handlock, you go with the mid range. What do you think specifically after maybe the edits that you will have to make to your decks? How do you feel these decks line up? Like, do you think there's like a stronger one? Do you think there's a weaker one? Are you maybe afraid the weaker one has some issues in the conquest format?
I think the handlock shouldn't be too much affected. I think there's no card twice in the handlock one, so that should be good. I think with the Zoo, I had a pretty low curve, so that should be more forgiving. I mean, I can possibly, afford to have some later game cards, but I was trying to go a bit aggressive with the Zoo deck, so guess I'll play more mid-rangey then, and with the mid-lock, it should be okay. Like, I think that will only be hit the most, I guess, the mid-lock.
The mid-lock.
We could have a mid-lock, while the Zoo kind of just slows down and the handlock remains effective.
Well, I do notice that in the mid-lock you have some cards that often win the game by themselves. And this is kind of like a big deal, I think, in this type of format, where you may not have the best answers. Like, even if they're playing Mage, Polymorph isn't one of their decks. Right? So, cards like Floating Watcher can just steamroll the game. And, it does provide for some interesting stuff. So, yeah, I do agree. It may be a little bit of an issue, but I think overall, you definitely still got a pretty good chance in this. Do you fear any of the other opponents? You are playing Trump to start. He almost won the last one. How do you feel you'll end up in this tournament?
I'm pretty positive of the deck building. I mean, I think the idea is good. I think what Thorir said recently in an interview was very, I guess, on point. You have to have a plan with each one of your decks, and I feel like I have a plan with each one of my decks, so kind of know. Yeah, I think I can go back to that if things go wrong, So I'm definitely quite confident. Yeah, I'm not fearing one player over the other. I think Trump is going to be a great opponent. I'm looking forward to play him. So.
All right. Well, let's see how that's going to roll out. I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks.
So Noxious, the deck building is complete, and man, you probably have a lot of thoughts running through your head. You ended up going with 3 Priest decks. I'm curious why you picked Priest to start.
It's the class I've played or experimented with the most. Like, I've played just about every deck that exists in the game, but I've made all sorts of funky Priests in an attempt a long time ago to make aggro Priest a reality. So in the process, I went from, control to tempo to just full-on aggro. So I have like 3 degrees of, deck building there.
Yeah, you have Mechazod, Control Alt Delete, and Ebola Church. Wow. How did you choose to distribute the cards? Just by the theme of the deck and just cards that seem to fit pretty well?
I went like Mechazod is the tempo deck that I built. I've been working on a Mech Priest for a long time now, ever since GVG, but it never worked out. Ever since like 2 days ago, I came up with a build that I thought was fairly satisfying, and I ended up having to swap, copies of Mechanical Yeti, like Paladin Shredder for Mechanical Yeti. But it's a deck that already ran a lot of one-ofs, and it's like 4 drops and over, so that ended up making it really easy where I just had to sub the early game. And Control Alt Delete, well, I just went for the typical Priest build with Northshire, Powered Shield. And Ebola Church, I just took the most aggressive minions that could draw sometimes if I could, like Collateral,
Yeah.
and everything else, yeah.
Oh, you had to stick the Murloc in there somewhere, right?
Yeah, you have to put it with Youthful Brewmaster.
I'm kind of curious. You have in your Ebola Church, you have a card like Nightblade. It is kind of like an aggressive deck. Do you think each of your decks can win a game because it is Conquest?
I think it can, because other players are also like under the same pressure of having to build crappy decks with whatever they can. So as a result, usually Ebola Church is able to compete, like the full-on version is able to compete with Face Hunter. Like I will Shrek Face
Okay.
Hunter day and night. But this version, which is watered down, is a little less bursty. So I'm gonna have to see whether or not that can work out.
Is that your main concern, just being able to win with each of the decks?
Yeah, well, I think Control Alt Delete could pull off a win fairly well because it resembles what I expect from a typical priest, aside from specific cards. Mechazod is tempo enough that it can compete. I'm just afraid, like, honestly, my biggest concern is Zoo. I didn't take a single build that really counters it, and I didn't feel like putting Shadow Madness in Mechazod since I really want to be minion heavy to make sure that I could out-tempo them.
Yeah. What do you think would be like the strongest and weakest classes? Because you said you picked Priest mostly just because you're experienced with it, and
Yeah.
this is a type of strategy that has worked for players who have won the tournament in the past, actually. So that's definitely the way to go, it seems. But what do you think is going to be the strong ones?
Class-wise?
Yeah.
I think Mage is gonna have a field day if they distribute their cards properly. Like they have a lot of their hero power carries them. Basically, it's kind of like I feel like this is kind of like Arena. If you pick Mage, Paladin, you're gonna be pretty much golden. In many cases, since you could get a one of all the cards. The problem is that since you can't duplicate a Flame Strike in another Mage deck, then suddenly you have to go for something else entirely. So, without the burn,
Yeah.
Mage becomes a lot weaker.
What about the opponent lineup? Is there do you have like a favorite, or is it just you? Are you just gonna slam dunk these dudes and take the prize?
No, I honestly, like, I'm just happy that I'm fighting against Freshka because I think he's a really fun player. Like amongst all the players who are like actually trying to play and stream, very few are having fun, and Freshka's among those. Like he'll push Mill Rogue to Legend just because he can, and I'm happy that I'm facing him first.
You think you're gonna win?
Nah, maybe. You never know. Like those decks, you can't predict anything at this point.
No predictions.
I'm really afraid of Warlock. Really, really afraid of Warlock. But we'll see how that goes.
We'll see how that goes. Thank you, Noxious, and I wish you the best of luck.
Pleasure.
Okay, man, very cool stuff. I'm not so sure about the like pure aggro priest deck. It kind of reminds me of Eloise's. I'm like, if they start clearing your board, I'm not sure what you're supposed to do here.
I get that, but like I'm confident in Noxious' ability to play priest, and he's confident in that deck, so I'm confident in that deck.
All right, that's a smart way to go about it. I don't know. I'm just looking at the deck list, and that's what's breaking me up a little bit. So
there's definitely some wild stuff there.
Do you open with? I mean, yeah, he seems confident in it, but I just wonder how he opens up. I feel like in this type of challenge, I would open up with what I thought was my weakest.
Maybe.
Just to be like, okay, can this get a win against anything?
I think Priest is traditionally a bit weak against Warlock, so that's something to consider because you have to play only one class. Priest maybe seems like the underdog, not because the strength of the class on its own, but because we expect a lot of players to play Warlock, and they did. As far as opening, though, I think if you're playing like the aggro deck right off the start or in the middle, I think it's just as big as a surprise. I don't think it makes any difference.
Fair enough.